Welcome back to Faith and Logic, episode 15. I wasn't sure I was gonna be here before the end of the year, but I am here, and I wanted to kind of, I guess, today outlay not even necessarily an overview for next year, but just something that I had considered about going into the new year, the direction I'm headed in, and a lot of things around that. I hope you've had a good 2024. And if not, then at the very least, you've maybe learnt some things, you understand some things better, and you're poised for a more fruitful, more successful 2025. Um, but for me, looking forward to the new year, with that being today's the 30th, so tomorrow will be New Year's Eve. Um, Looking back at the year, looking back at the 2024, I had a lot of things fell into place in the right way. And considering for myself how that worked out and how I was able to maybe use the momentum I gained in the early part of the year to align more closely on the things I needed to as the year went on. And what I found was, is as I gained more alignment as the year went on, more and more things fell into place in the right way. Now I'm nowhere near where I want to be or would like to be, but certainly if I look at where I was at the beginning of last year or this time last year, let's say the end of 2023, then I'm in a massively much more a much better place, space, position than where I was the year prior to that. And I would say it's the most significant difference I've perceived from my own life in the 33 years I've been alive. So it's important for me to understand how that worked out and what I can use from the year to kind of do better next year, right? And the most neat way I would say it is that for me personally, and this is what I'm going to share today essentially, is the map. Let's say what we're talking about here is I think everyone needs a map. You need a map to basically know the direction that you're heading in. Okay, if we're trying to get to a destination, if it's on the other side of London or wherever it is that you live and you've never been there before, somewhere to get to anywhere you've never been before, you need a map. Essentially, you need a map. We have digital maps. We're talking about personal maps here. The tricky thing with personal maps, life maps, maps that you hold maybe in your mind for things that you want to do, achieve, or be, is that they don't actually come with directions. Okay, all you get from your personal map is a destination, and in many ways, that's the most important part of that whole equation. So you don't necessarily need directions, but you need to know where you would like to go. And then I think the directions start to play out as you start to move towards that destination. You do small things, some things don't work, some things do work, and you slowly begin to um, find yourself on the pathway to the place that you're trying to arrive at. Um, so the first thing for that is knowing where you want to go. And I think for many of us, we already may know where we want to go. And it's simply a case of admitting it to ourselves, being more direct with ourselves about where we would like to go, and then starting that journey of plotting our route to get there, essentially. And then once you have your destination, you can start figuring out the steps you must take and the roads you must travel to get to this place, right? So if you don't know where you're going, if you have no clear direction, no ambition, no focus, no thing, or even if it's an object that you want to attain, there's no way you're gonna be able to do anything. Okay. And I think I've lived many years of my life like that as an adult, of kind of just knowing what I enjoy and the experiences I like to have, but not necessarily having a clear focus or direction on any particular one thing or achievement that I would like to be able to reach out and touch and grab. So what's happened is you end up just kind of tumbling through life. You end up not really going anywhere. You might be, enjoying things, you do usual stuff, you work hard, you might play sports, you go on holiday, you spend time with family. These things are all very gratifying, and it's nothing wrong with any of that. But certainly if you have a bit of a void or there's something missing, you probably something in your life that you want to do that you haven't yet admitted to yourself that you truly care about, that you need to start going after. And first of all, is, as I said, kind of aligning with yourself on what that is, so that you can then start moving towards it. So once you have your destination, you can start figuring out the steps you must take and the road you must travel to get there. One of the things which can be difficult, especially if you have, quite a wayward mind, is deviating from this destination. So deviating from your destination is not only indecision, but it will undoubtedly delay your arrival and also make it harder to read your map, as you might be caught between two different places. So if at the start of the year I say, okay, I want to open this business, and then halfway through the year something else comes up and I'm like, well, I'd quite like to do that as well. It's very feasible that you can potentially pursue both things simultaneously. However, you started this journey to open your business at the start of the year. So for you to then turn around and say, well, I need to split this time now, even though I haven't got to where I want to get with that, to split the time and say, okay, I want to do this. Also, if that second destination is as big as the first one, then you're going to have trouble getting to both places at the same time. Uh, Simultaneously, you're also going to probably slow down your growth because you're not really focusing on either one with 100% capacity. You're having to split yourself. So one thing that's important, I think, for me, well, as I said, this is just my personal experience, is once I decided where I wanted to go, is being uniquely focused on that one thing, not allowing myself to be distracted by other goals that I might want, that again, you might pursue further down the line, but ultimately, for the time being, is understanding where you are, your resources, your time, your money, all the other things that you're going to have to use to get to where you want to go, and how you can split those most neatly. Okay, so the second goal might be a smaller one that can work alongside your main one. However, in a lot of cases, when you're ambitious, it's very difficult to want to do something which is quite big and then also, pivot away from that or be pulled away from that by something else which you also like, because we have many interests, right? And there's many things that we think might be of value to us further down the line, but at the same time, I think discipline and focus on one thing at a time, particularly when we're talking about big goals here, is very necessary. So staying focused on the one thing that we think is going to be most valuable to us, that we can achieve, that we've already started moving towards, is important. um Another part, or the next part of this kind of equation, which I think has worked well for me, is not worrying about the time. Okay, when you open Google Maps, and it gives you multiple routes, and there's a quicker one and there's a longer one, there's maybe a medium one, there's one that has trains, tubes and buses, there's one that requires a car, there's one that's a walking distance. There's loads of different variations on how you can get to your destination. Some are quick, some are short. Some are quick, some are long, and some are kind of fairly in the middle, right? But I think what's most important is ignoring the time. When we're talking about getting to somewhere we really want to go to, maybe we've been trying to get there for years, or maybe it's something that we kind of thought about for years but never actually started the journey towards. You cannot then worry about how long it's going to take to get there. That's going to put you in a place where you start to lose focus. A comparison will come into the fold, and you'll start looking at what other people have and look at how far they're along their journey compared to you. And there's all these other elements which kind of play out when you start to focus on time as a measure of how well you're doing or how far along you are, that really slow down your progress on this journey. You've got your map, it's laid out in front of you. The map that we're talking about doesn't come with any kind of time specifications or directions. It just has the destination, and the steps unveil as you go through the pathway. One thing you can't do at this point is worry about time. If you worry about time in this instance, when you're talking about getting to a destination which is a goal that you're trying to achieve, all right, put it this way. Well, I mean, it works two ways, and I'm having this thought openly in dialogue. I haven't written this down in any of my notes as I'm writing this, but if if someone says to you, it's like it's, you know what it is, okay, and I'm dithering now, but it's like the analogy of the two guys who are mining for diamonds, and one guy's really close to getting his diamond, and the other guy um keeps mining and he gets his one, but the other guy just gave up because it felt like this was taking too long. Okay. And it's the same type of analogy here for your map. You're walking maybe through the woods, the mountains, the forest. Maybe you have to swim. Maybe you have to run. Maybe you have to cycle. You've got to do all these things to get to where you want to go. And it feels like a long journey, but all you're doing really is building fortitude and slowly taking small steps towards where you want to go. However, if someone said to you, if a higher power said to you, look, you're gonna get there, but it will take 5 years, you might be like, okay, 5 years, yeah, as long as I keep going, I can get there. You'll be fine with that. Unfortunately, we don't have such luxuries when it comes to these types of things. There's no one who's going to be able to tell you when this thing is going to happen for you. You're going to have to, in this instance, and again, the name of the channel, you're going to have to use your faith and your logic to determine how much you want this thing and whether or not you're willing to stick to the goal at hand to get there, which is a very difficult part of the whole equation. The time element, time is very important for us as humans. We view a lot of things through the lens of time and how much, because on the one hand, it's one of our biggest commodities, right? How we spend our time. However, when it comes to something that you really care about that you're trying to achieve, I don't think time should play a huge factor in that. You cannot expect something big like this to arrive on a timing which is convenient for you. Part of attaining that thing is the willingness to take for it to take as long as it takes, because you're that dedicated to it that whenever it arrives, and you'll have your moment in the sun, and it will be everything you dreamed of because you had to wait for it, you had to work for it. You might get it quickly. You might start this thing that you want to do, and within a year's time, you've already got to or close to where you wanted to be at the start of the journey, and that's quite beautiful and miraculous. But to say that you need it to be that way or want it to be that way or you deserve it to be that way, I think is where we kind of lose ourselves as human beings, because the time element is such a huge focus for us. So what's important to do here is remove time. Do not time your journey. Just put on your boots, put on your bag, and start working, but do not worry about your arrival time. Okay, you just start moving towards the destination. Time in this instance is, it has no consequence. Okay, why start doing anything if there's a time at which you'll decide that you will give up on it? That's really the question you should ask yourself in that instance, right? Also, similarly, as kind of at the start of that equation, if we worry too much about the time it takes to get somewhere, we're less likely to start the journey. So again, similar to the Google Maps analogy I was just talking about, right? If you check out this place that you want to get to, let's say there's a really nice barbers. Okay, we all go to the barbers or the hairdressers, and it says, it's got 5-star reviews. Maybe one of your friends went there. It's really nice. This could be anything really, but you look at your Google Maps and map says it's an hour and a half away. Damn, like that's quite a long distance. But there's this one that has 3.5 stars. It's not quite 5-star. Has 3.5 stars, some good reviews, some bad reviews, but it's only 20 minutes away. Okay. It is then up to you. Again, that's where the time is used. That's where time is our commodity in this instance. I can go further and get something better, or I can take the shortcut, the shorter route, and have something which isn't quite as good, but is still maybe might be satisfactory, but could also work out not to be what I wanted at all. And in that case, it's quite, you have to make your decisions. Everyone has their own choices to make, and no one can make them for you. It's how much you're willing to put into this thing and how much faith you have that it's going to happen, which will ultimately determine how far you go in this instance. Yeah. And similarly with time, whenever you look at something which is big, and especially when you can't see the time around something, is how many people do you know that were talented or had a good idea or you felt could do something that didn't even begin or decided not to begin because the destination seemed too far away, or the terrain that they had to traverse to get to this place was too rocky, too hilly. It happens a lot. You hear a lot of people talk about, hey, I'd like to do this, or I'd like to do, I really want to do this thing. Maybe they work a 9 to 5 or they have their day job, and they ultimately say, yeah, but it's just a pipe dream. I mean, realistically, I don't have the money to start, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. They'll find all the reasons why it won't work instead of just putting on their boots and bag and trying to go towards this place, which is ultimately going to be a much happier space for them. So it's very common. We see that in people that, the distance, the perceived distance in their mind is just too far for them to cross. And again, that comes down to time ultimately as human beings. It's like I have this much time on earth. I want to enjoy it as much as I can. Don't necessarily want to be spent in, a place which is quite filled with mental anguish around the thing that I'm trying to achieve that I'm finding very difficult. So, we kind of have to make our own choices. I'm telling you that starting the journey is way more valuable to you than not starting it and wondering what if. Okay. At least if you start and maybe it doesn't work out, you can ultimately say to yourself, well, I tried, That's that I think that has its own merit, definitely. Similarly, with the instance of the person who doesn't start because the distance looks too long is the person who doesn't start because they don't have all the means currently. Okay, they don't have everything they need to get there. Let's say similarly as I was describing. Let's say you've got to run, bike, climb, and swim to get to this place. It's like a triathlon. Let's say you might find that you start on the running part of the journey, and the running is good, but you ultimately find that you run up to the body of water. Okay, you arrive at the body of water, and you're like, well, I don't have swimming gear. What I found in my own journey of self-discovery and also trying to get to somewhere which is meaningful to me is that along that run you're going to find your swimming gear. Okay, you're going to find your swimming gear, and that will allow you to cross that stream, the lake, maybe the ocean that you need to cross in order to get to the other side safely, right? Similarly, when you get out of the water and it's time to travel, but this time you need the bike because it's a longer distance than the run was, that bike will be waiting there for you. Okay, because you endeavored enough to find the swimming stuff along your way to the water. When you get out of the water, the bike will now be there. We won't know how it gets there, but ultimately it will be there. And that for me is the instance of faith in any of these scenarios. That is the role that faith plays. Faith, where you have given up to the higher power to say, okay, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I know what I want to happen, and I trust that it will. When you get out of that water, that bike's going to be there. And similarly, when you get to the mountain face and you've got to scale that mountain to get to the summit, the rock climbing stuff will appear as well. Part of the journey is one, who you are, and also what you believe as well. And the way I would describe that is you have all the tools already. The main tool you need to start making your way towards where you want to go, it's between your ears. It's right here. It's your brain, right? That's going to provide you with everything you need. It's gonna allow you to figure out how to get the things you need to get to where you want to go. You're going to have to be smart about it. You're going to have to make decisions which sometimes feel difficult, decisions you don't necessarily want to make about things that you might want, things that you might feel like you need, that you're going to have to sacrifice in order to hold out for the bigger thing, which is waiting for you further down the line. But that sacrifice is also the test of how much you want that thing, how much you say you want that thing that you're trying to get to. So if you have your destination in mind, this is the main thing you need. The tool that you need is between your ears, and it's cultivated in such a way that it already has all the information and knowledge in there. You just have to go about finding the different pieces along the road which are going to allow you to get to that place that you're trying to get to. So you have all the tools in between your ears, the greatest tool you were given. And this will allow you to collect anything you need along the way to get to your destination if you use it wisely. Okay. And in closing, what is the most important part of the journey? If I want to get to, like I said, a mountaintop, a summit somewhere, or wherever I want to get to, let's say it's a different country, whatever it is that you want to do, be it physical, mental, physiological, attaining something, whatever this thing is that you want to do. The most important part of any journey is setting off. That's by far the most important part of getting anywhere. If you don't leave where you are, you cannot arrive at where you want to be. And that is essentially it. Once you start the journey, the pathway, it unfolds before you, and you don't know how long it's going to take to get there. And you're going to have to sacrifice a lot. along the way to arrive at your destination, but with faith in your own abilities and the higher power and the destiny which you think you're meant for, you will ultimately arrive there. And it won't have been easy. That's one thing for sure. I don't think anyone who's achieved anything worth doing will tell you, oh, it was easy. That was real easy. I didn't really have to try very hard. I didn't have to worry about it too much. It kind of just happened like randomly. No, you're going to have to give up a lot along the way. You're going to have to work incredibly hard to get there. And at times it's going to feel like it's not worth doing anymore. But ultimately, sticking to your guns, maintaining focus, and doubling down when it feels most difficult is what's going to see you through. That's episode 15, 2025, finding your map, figuring out your map so you can get to where you want to go. I will see you guys most likely in the new year in episode 16. So happy new year from me and take care.